Hello and welcome to Journalism 100. I'm Professor Tracy Savage, and this is my lecture video. In this video, I will review Chapter 15. Chapter 15 is titled Media Effects and Cultural Approaches to Research. It looks at the different types of research that have been used through the years to understand the media and its impact on individuals and society as a whole. For almost as long as there have been media, researchers have tried to understand the effects of media. There are two main ways in which researchers study the media. To understand the effect of mass media on individuals and society, researchers have conducted media effects research. This type of research attempts to understand, explain, and predict the effects of mass media on individuals and society. This attempts to find cause and effect. For example, do violent video games cause violent behavior in kids? Researchers have also conducted cultural studies research. This research focuses on how people make meaning, articulate values, comprehend reality, and arrange experiences through cultural symbols. It won't show cause and effect, but it does try to find deeper cultural impact and meaning. In the early 1900s in the United States, the analysis of the effects of the media was characterized by data collection and numerical measurement. There were four main types of research: propaganda analysis, public opinion research, social psychology studies, and marketing research. Propaganda is information, ideas, or rumors deliberately spread widely to help or harm a person, group, movement, institution, or nation. During World War I, governments routinely relied on propaganda to mobilize public opinion. Social scientists at the time were concerned that increased amounts of propaganda were decreasing the public's ability to think critically. Public opinion research. This primarily uses surveys of citizens to provide insights into social attitudes. But a main problem with this type of research is something called pseudo-polls. Pseudo meaning fake, generally unscientific, meaningless, question of the day type of polls. With social psychology studies, social psychologists typically explain human behavior as a result of the interaction of mental states and social situations. Social psychology studies measure individual behavior and cognition. And marketing research is usually carried out in the form of surveys on consumer buying habits. Researchers have developed sophisticated methods to determine consumer preferences and media use. This is extremely important to advertisers who want to make sure they reach the correct target audience with their ads. Moving into the middle of the 1900s, about 1950, researchers began using behavioral science to try to understand, explain, and predict the impact of mass media on individuals and society. There were three different models that were used during this time: the hypodermic needle model, the minimal effects model, and the uses and gratifications model. The hypodermic needle model is also known as the magic bullet theory. It suggests that media shoot their potent effects directly into unsuspecting victims. The theory is that media messages are injected into us with no power to fight it, like being shot with a hypodermic needle. Also known as the limited model, the minimal effects model suggests that the media's impact on society is limited because people generally engage in selective exposure and selective retention of media. Because we selectively seek out the type of media to watch that fits our values, and because we selectively retain information that we agree with, the media only reinforces how we already feel. And the third model is the uses and gratifications model. This model asks the question, why do we use the media? What void are we trying to fill? Are we lonely, depressed, need to seek a sense of community, or do you need to get some drama into your life? Add a little spice. When conducting media effects research in the 60s and 70s, most media research employed the scientific method for studying media in very systematic stages. Researchers ID'd the problem, they reviewed existing research relating to this problem, they developed a working hypothesis or a prediction about what the study might find. They figure out an appropriate research plan, they collect data, analyze the results to see if the hypothesis is correct, and interpret the implications of the study. This scientific method follows a step-by-step blueprint that relies on objectivity, reliability, and validity. When conducting media effects research using scientific experiments, the goal is to test if a hypothesis is true. For example, if kids watch scenes of violence, would this make kids more violent? Scientists would use an experimental group and a control group. One well-documented experiment involved Bobo the doll, a blow-up punching bag. The experimental group of kids witnessed adults beating on Bobo. Those kids then copied what they saw and beat Bobo too, more than the control group, which never witnessed the adults being aggressive. This became known as the social learning theory. This theory has been used to demonstrate a link between violent media programs and aggressive behavior. The theory states there is a 4-step process for the link to occur: attention, retention, motor reproduction, and motivation. The main problem with this type of research is that scientists are pretty good about predicting short-term media effects under controlled conditions, but they can't predict how subjects will behave months or years later in the real world. Another type of media effects research is survey research, a method of collecting and measuring data taken from a group of respondents to show correlations between variables. This type of research won't reveal cause and effect. There are too many variables, but there are benefits. Researchers can do long-term studies, known as longitudinal studies, where they can compare new studies with old studies to see if opinions or values have changed through the years. Another common type of media effects research is called content analysis, where researchers study specific media messages to find such things as trends or stereotypes in the media. For example, researchers will analyze TV shows and count the number of violent scenes. Some of the contemporary media effects theories include agenda setting. The mass media set the agenda for major topics of discussion. Mass media doesn't tell us what to think, but they do tell us what to think about. And cultivation effect is another contemporary media effect theory. This mass media phenomenon suggests that extensive television viewing leads individuals to perceive reality in ways that are consistent with the portrayals they see on television. The cultivation effect is also known as the mean world theory. Heavy viewers of violent TV begin to believe that the world that they live in is violent and dangerous too. Spiral of silence is a media effects theory that proposes that those whose views on controversial issues are in the minority will keep their views to themselves for fear of social isolation. And the third person effect is the theory that people believe others are more affected by media messages than they are themselves. While scientific models of research continue to this day, some researchers have moved away from the scientific models to a cultural approach to media studies known as cultural studies. These researchers focus on how people make meaning, understand reality, and order experience by using cultural symbols that appear in the media. Scientists conducting cultural studies research use 3 major analytical approaches: textual analysis, audience studies, and political economy studies. Unlike the numerical measurement of content analysis, textual analysis involves the close reading and interpretation of the meanings of cultural messages. Audience studies focus on how people use and interpret cultural content. This is different from surveys. Researchers aren't trying to get feedback about a topic, but rather want to learn more about the people being questioned. Political economy studies examines interconnections among economic interests, political power, and how that power is used. The greatest concern of political economy studies about the mass media is the increasing conglomeration of ownership. Cultural studies research on media attempts to get a more general perspective about how mass media interact with the world. One of the main concepts that goes along with cultural studies is the importance of the public sphere. Society in England and France in the late 17th and 18th centuries created spaces, coffee houses, pubs, for public discourse. In 1962, German philosopher Jürgen Habermas theorized that a public forum for critical debate is essential for a democratically functioning society. He explained you must have open communication to share and debate ideas. So where are the public spheres today? In this digital age, people are spending more time alone on their electronic devices, passively observing rather than engaging and debating the issues. So, how has media research aided democracy? Critics complain that academics involved in media studies are isolated from life outside of the university and aren't seeing the big picture. They often exclude the public from the research process and produce research reports that are hard to decipher because of their use of jargon that most can't understand, and they often alienate non-academics. This is the end of this chapter review. Be sure to read the entire chapter, complete the discussion board, review the study guide and the key terms, and then by the end of this week, you will take the quiz for this chapter. Good luck, everyone.